As a young boy, I made a decision that would change my life forever. At the age of 11, I decided to move to Kuwait. Reluctantly, my mom let me go with my dad, who worked with Northrop Grumman at the time, doing military contracting through them in Kuwait. And he was there for roughly 3 to 4 years before I got there, and was there a little bit longer after I lived with him. And it was during my 6th grade year, so I was a young kid, fresh into middle school, really not knowing much about the world or about myself for that matter. So my experience in Kuwait was a wonderful one, and I wanted to share that with y'all today. First, we'll be talking about Kuwait in general, to the cultural aspects of Kuwait, mostly the religion, and 3 unique communicative behaviors of Kuwaiti citizens. So now that we know a little bit of history about my my past with Kuwait, we can talk about Kuwait's past as a whole. So Kuwait is located in the northern tip of the Persian Gulf. It's surrounded by larger countries like Iraq, Iran, Saudi Arabia, a lot of big nations. Kuwait really doesn't have much pull in the Middle East because it's so small, because it's relatively underdeveloped in comparison, but they are very oil rich. In fact, according to BBC News' Kuwait profile, last updated July 1st of 2015, oil has dominated the economy, selling roughly almost 90% of the export revenues. So Kuwait is pretty much ran off of oil. Middle East is ran off of oil in the grand scheme of things. So if you've ever seen a traffic jam in Abu Dhabi or Dubai, it's pretty much all Ferraris and Lamborghinis. It's the same way in Kuwait. It's a very dusty, very desert-like area with a lot of oil, and that's pretty much all there is to it. There's not much located outside of Kuwait City. Most of the population is actually located in Kuwait City. There isn't another city in Kuwait. So that's pretty much where everything is. It's very centrally located. Summers get up to around 120 degrees, winters get down to like 60. So it can be nice if you're not dying from dehydration. Secondly, we'll talk about the cultural aspects of Kuwait, specifically the religion. When we talk about Kuwait, it's Muslim. Islam is what makes the nation. Islam is what makes the Middle East. Specifically, the government is under Sharia law. It's not as strict as Iraq and Iran, but it is ran under Sharia law. So a lot of the things are very archaic, I guess you could say, compared to the United States way of running things. Women do have a lot more freedom, a lot more ability to do what they want to. They don't have to wear the hijab, they don't have to wear a complete covering and headdress, but they can choose to do so. So it's not as strict as other areas around the world in the Middle East, but but most of the things there are very traditional. Specifically, during Ramadan, which is a 30-day period in Islam or Islamic religion, where people fast all day long. They fast from about sunrise to sunset. They don't eat all day. And in Kuwait, you're not allowed to eat. Anyone, whether you're Islamic or a foreigner, you are not allowed to eat in Kuwait during Ramadan during the day. It's disrespectful. It can land you in jail, actually. You cannot do it. And it's actually a little bit hard to describe what that feeling would be and that disrespect. I don't truthfully understand it, but it is something you do have to follow in order to live there. That information is actually brought to you by 2015 Culturalgram's online edition. It was last updated in 2015 in the section Holidays. It talks about how during Ramadan you're not allowed to eat in those areas due to the religion and due to those preferences. So in order to respect the culture, you have to understand where those people are coming from. You don't have to agree with it, but it's one thing to live there. You kind of have to fall into the same rules. Now, with that being said, Kuwait is a very westernized nation because it was invaded by Saddam Hussein for the oil, and even though they really didn't get much of it, for the oil, they went in there. The United States liberated them. They actually dedicate an entire week to the United States. They call it Liberation Week. Nobody goes to school. Nobody really goes to work. Everything's shut down, all because the United States liberated Kuwait. So they're very westernized. They have some of the largest malls in the world. It's a very great place to be. People are very nice, but it does still follow those strict cultural aspects and cultural rules from Islam. So lastly, we talk about the unique communication behaviors that Kuwaiti citizens have and Middle Easterns have in general. One is their aspect of power distance, and power distance can be described as how you view like a hierarchical order. United States citizens don't exactly appreciate authority. We don't really think of the people above us as people that we have to listen to. In Kuwait, that is very strict. You listen to those above you. You don't disobey the ones around you. And according to Geert Hofstede Center's website, last update is unknown. What about in the article? What about Kuwait? We can see how this power distance, how the power distance is very high, and how the people follow what they're told, do what they're told, and don't change anything in between that. They follow this very strict hierarchical order. And in conclusion, we can see that Kuwait is a wonderful nation. It's somewhere that if you ever have the chance to live, you should go live there, at least to visit. You know, by looking at Kuwait as a whole, looking into their history and their past, what they have, looking at the cultural aspects, understanding them, and trying to, you know, piece into the communicative behaviors that they do have and how they interact with one another. You can kind of get a piece of the life of Kuwait. It's very Middle Eastern, very traditional. But if I could go back, and I one day will, it'll be pretty soon. So, thank you.